Governor Eddie Calvo says it's plain and simple. The government needs to cut up to $71 million in spending, or he will be forced to cut by laying off GovGuam employees. But the legislature says it's not that simple. At last night's roundtable discussion on Bill 507, the governor's spending cuts bill, Vice Speaker Cruz made a few suggestions, one of which was for the governor to take back his bill, rewrite it to address some inaccuracies, then resubmit it. But the governor is not having it.
I'll state for the record, we're not going to introduce any new bill. But for the Senator Cruz who voted for what I consider an obscene amended budget for 2010, for him to come back with another bill, I'm not going to go along with his political theatrics.
The governor is talking about the 2010 budget, which was amended toward the end of that budget's fiscal year that reflected only a $30 million deficit. The governor deplored some Democrat lawmakers over that last-minute action, as an audit later showed that the deficit was actually $70 million.
When we talk about face saving, where you, at the end of the year, change the budget to raise income tax reserve by over $30 million, thereby reducing revenues, isn't that an empty promise? How can you, as an elected official, do something like that? That was probably one of the most unethical acts I've ever seen in my time as a public servant.
Responding to Governor Calvo's statements, Budget Chairman Senator Ben Pangilinan said the 2010 amendment was nothing more than an adjustment made to ensure proper accounting at the request of the administration at the time. Any other interpretation, he says, shows, quote, a lack of knowledge of government accounting principles, a lack of understanding of what occurred, and a deliberate twisting of the facts for political purposes, end quote. Asked about Senator Cruz's call for addressing the government's shortfall by beefing up rev and tax collections, Governor Calvo says it would not be enough to offset prior year tax refunds plus payables.
So again, I think that's a viable option. But it's part of the pie, and it's a rather, I would say, small slice of the pie.
The bigger problem lies in the urgent need for cuts, the governor says. Asked what would happen if the legislature doesn't approve those cuts, Governor Calvo says he may have to invoke his organic authority to make the cuts himself.
But if you don't get the $71 million, are layoffs back on the table?
From the very beginning, when we came in, we showed where this government was at and how we got here. We understood, too, that probably the simplest way is a reduction in workforce. We've also heard some of the sentiment from the public and the legislature that, in fact, I'm not too sure what senator said, that furloughs and layoffs were the last option. But if they are going to cry and debate us on issues such as benefits, such as overtime, on things that will not at least cut the livelihood out for a fireman or a policeman or a nurse or a teacher, then what other options are they left?
If you don't get that 70.
Yes.